All right, welcome back. So, looking at the Sam Bennett discussions that have been out there, and I thought, Sam Bennett and Jake Virtanen have followed very similar paths, just got here very different ways. So, Sam Bennett's drafted fourth overall in 2014. Jake Virtanen's drafted sixth overall 2014. At the time, Bennett was seen as a excellent forward. That was seen as a really good top four in 2014. Could have gone in any order. I still have the hockey news that says could have gone in any order. Jake Virtanen was seen as an excellent young potential power forward in the National Hockey League who would put up very good totals in juniors. And so both of them were seen as smart decisions. Now, they're born very, very close. They're in the same draft class. So that makes sense. June 20th, 1996, August 17th, 1996. So only two months between the two of them. They're both 6'1". Jake Virtanen is the bigger of the two by about 30 pounds, according to Hockey Reference, 226 to 196. But Bennett plays a heavy game as well. And it's interesting because Bennett comes into the league first. He plays one regular season game in 2014-2015, gets an assist, and in the playoffs, 11 games, 3 goals, 1 assist, 4 points. But he's seen as a key part of the future for the Calgary Flames, right? And so this is their big future centerman. This is, projected as a 1 or 2 centerman. And it is important to note Bennett is a guy who can play center and has played center. Virtanen is not a center. So that's going to give more value to Bennett than Virtanen right out of the gate. So when I've seen people saying, well, maybe Bennett should go to Vancouver for Virtanen, trust me, if that was a possibility, I think Jim Benning would be on the phone immediately, and I think Tree Living would hang up on him. 2015-2016, 77 games played in Bennett's rookie season, 18 goals, 18 assists, 36 points. Those are still career highs for Bennett. He had 110 hits that year, and we're going to be tracking those. Jake Virtanen in his rookie year, 55 games, 7 goals, 6 assists, 13 points, 128 hits. There were moments where Virtanen looks decent that year, but there's plenty of talk about that Nylander kid in Toronto out of both fan bases. Because Nylander turned out to be a pretty good pick for the Toronto Maple Leafs. The question I would have is, if the Canucks had drafted Nylander and looking at what they have now, how in the world do you fit any of that under the cap? But anyways, we move on to 2016-2017. So Bennett, 81 games, 13 goals, 13 assists, 26 points, plays 4 games in the postseason, 2 goals, 127 hits. It's not great that his goals go down, but it's the sophomore year, and there's a sophomore jinx. Meanwhile, Jake Virtanen was hit much harder with the sophomore jinx. Only played 10 games in Vancouver, 1 assist, 17 hits that year, and we're into questions of, so is Jake a bust or what? Is he a complete bust, right? And of course, it's way too early to say whether or not he's a bust. However, 2017-2018 moves along. 82 games played by Bennett, 11 goals, 15 assists, 26 points, 140 hits. Bennett does hit. 2017-2018, 75 games played by Jake Virtanen, 10 goals, 10 assists, 20 points, 156 hits for Jake. But again, the 10 goals, it's disappointing because for Vancouver, they were looking for a little bit more from Virtanen than what they were seeing to that point. But it still felt like it's only 4 years out from his draft year. There's no point in giving up on Jake just yet. 2018-2019, 71 games, 13 goals, 14 assists, 27 points for Bennett. So he continues to be mired in just middling numbers, right? 5 games, 1 goal, 4 assists, 5 points in the playoffs, 121 hits in the regular season. And again, when you get to playoff games, it feels like Sam plays better. It feels like when you get into a playoff matchup, Bennett's game, it amps up to that next level. Virtanen hasn't got into a playoff game at this point. 70 games that year, 15 goals, 10 assists, 25 points, 154 hits. The 15 goals shows he can score. And if not for missing 12 games that year, he would have been closer to 20 in all likelihood, probably about 30 points. And so, as somebody who's an optimist that Virtanen would be able to come through this, I was talking plenty about Virtanen's he's gonna come through this. It's gonna be just fine. That optimism takes a hit later. For Sam Bennett, 52 games, 8 goals, 4 assists, 12 points. And this is where things get kind of weird. I'm going to talk about the regular season for Virtanen. 69 games, 18 goals, 18 assists, 36 points. Virtanen was a good goal scorer during the regular season. If we played a full 82 games, I have no doubt he would have reached 20 goals last year. Bennett, well, he only plays the 52 games, only had 8 goals, 12 points. At times, he just didn't look like it just wasn't working, right? So for Bennett, it looks like he's on his way down. Virtanen's on his way up. Then we had the return. So we had the playoffs in the bubble. In 10 bubble playoff games for the Flames, and this includes obviously the play-in round as well, 5 goals, 3 assists for Bennett, 8 points. Amazing. Amazing play by Bennett throughout most of those playoffs. 101 regular season hits that year, but really those playoffs, that's where you look at it. For Virtanen, who had 102 hits that year, so his hits totals came down from where they were in previous years, even though he played about the same number of games. 16 playoff games, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points. And that's where I ran out of excuses. That's where I ran out of, okay, don't worry, Jake's gonna, at least he still scores goals. He wasn't scoring goals in the playoffs. And where the games were the most important games of his career, his first games in the playoffs, Virtanen was invisible, or even worse, sometimes a liability, where he only gets on the score sheet through a penalty here and there. So it was frustrating to watch. And of course, there was talk about him maybe not taking things as seriously as he needed to, and this is where it shows up. So for anybody who goes, well, you just trade Virtanen for Bennett. This is why the Flames say no. Bennett's a center. Bennett's already proven he can play in the playoffs. Bennett has shown that while the regular season numbers aren't where you want them to be, when the games are important, he ramps up his game. So we'll look at where they're at so far this season, and the numbers are similar. 7 games played by Bennett, 1 assist, right? He's playing an average of 13 minutes and 29 seconds per game. He has 13 hits so far in 7 games. And Flames fans will say he's being miscast. He should be getting more ice time, to which other teams in the league would likely be interested in if he was on the block. But according to the Flames, he's not, and he hasn't requested a trade. Virtanen, 9 games, 1 goal, no assists. He's playing an average of 11 minutes and 57 games. And it feels like with the emergence of Höglander, that's Virtanen's spot. That in letting Toffoli go and deciding to keep Virtanen, they were taking that bet of, hey, these 18 goals for Virtanen, he's got 10, 15, 18. Maybe next year he can go over 20. It's a cheaper option than Toffoli and keeps us under the cap. If we keep Toffoli, odds are we have to get rid of Virtanen, and then we got to get creative to stay under the cap and get a team out on the ice. And we want to fix the blue line too, right? So far, it's been a disaster. He has 16 hits so far, though. So the hits are right about where they should be in any given regular season for Virtanen. But it feels like Virtanen has taken a major step backwards so far this season. Bennett has taken a step backwards as well. Bennett may very well be kind of tired of being stuck in this in Calgary. He's been a Flame now for 371 games, 63 goals, 66 assists, 129 points. And I think everybody, including Bennett himself, would admit those totals are not what he envisioned at the time of the draft in 2014. He's played 30 playoff games, 11 goals, 8 assists, 19 points. This right here is why Bennett is worth some money. This is right here is why when I see people saying, Bennett sucks. No, because when the games are important, he's a guy who puts up points. He's a guy who puts goals on the board. He has shown that in the playoffs. Anytime he's been in the playoffs, he's produced better than Virtanen did in the play-in round and in the playoffs that followed in 2020. Now, when we look at the overall totals, we get across to hits 612 for Bennett. Bennett hits less per game than does Virtanen. We'll get to Virtanen hits. 304 penalty minutes. He does take a lot more penalties than does Virtanen. Gets into the fisticuffs a little more than Jake. 14 minutes and 12 seconds of average ice time, which means that right now at 13:29, he is below his career average. And that's still too low. That's too low for a guy who has the talent level that I still think Bennett has. But the issue now becomes one of, he has played this many seasons in the NHL. Is there a chance he goes to a team like, just say like the Flyers, like a John LeClair kind of situation? LeClair was in Montreal for years, put up decent totals, sure. Goes to Philadelphia and explodes. Everything, it just absolutely works. So is Bennett capable of that? Maybe. I think the more realistic goal is, I think Bennett can still be a 20-goal scorer in the NHL. I think he's shown that, and I think he has the talent to do it. He just needs to find a team that can get him there. This is why, to me, Sam Bennett is an automatic if I'm the Seattle Kraken. If Bennett is available from Calgary, he's the one I'm taking because I'm looking at these numbers and saying we might have a situation where he's a William Karlsson type, William Karlsson was kind of buried in Columbus, and nobody envisioned what Karlsson was going to be able to do in Vegas. The goal scoring that first year was way more than he's been able to accomplish since, but he's a really good all-around forward. I can see some of that with Bennett. He is not going to score like Karlsson did, but I can see some of that same game where he could be a top 2 center for an expansion team and not hurt him much. Now, Virtanen's played 288 games, 51 goals, 45 assists, 96 points. In terms of offense, not completely unlike Bennett throughout their careers. The interesting thing is Bennett's best year is his first year. The best year offensively for Virtanen is last season, and the goals and assists in their best season, exactly the same. Virtanen did it in 8 less games. So, Virtanen hits his career high last season. Bennett's career high was his rookie season, and both of them are sitting with 1 point so far this year. Now, Virtanen's ice time is currently at 11 minutes and 57 seconds per game. For his career, it's 12:48. Virtanen has played less of a role with Vancouver than Bennett has for the Calgary Flames. Again, that to me says Bennett probably has a higher value right now. However, the one argument you can make for Jake Virtanen, if you want to, and I can't. I can't. I loved the 18 goals last year. I believe I saw 1 or 2 of them in person last year at Canuck games, but I can't. Virtanen, when he gets those opportunities, it just doesn't necessarily work, but you can make the argument that he plays less than Bennett. So if his points are scored with more points per 60 minutes than Bennett, then maybe he just needs the right opportunity to play more. That's the argument I can make. 96 points for him in his career, 573 hits, which is roughly 40 less than Bennett, and he's played, about 85 less games in his career, roughly. 184 penalty minutes, which is less than Bennett, but again, Bennett's been playing a different role with Calgary than Virtanen has with Vancouver. 12 minutes and 48 seconds is the average ice time throughout his career for Virtanen. That's almost a minute and a half less per game than Bennett. So Bennett gets the same amount of points, plays about a minute and a half more per game over his career than Virtanen. But still, I think if there was a call made and there was a trade to be made of the two, because Calgary and Vancouver do have that great relationship with one another, I can't see it without Vancouver having to throw in a draft pick. And if he does, that's when Canuck Twitter melts down at Jim Benning trading away a draft pick and Virtanen to get Sam Bennett. But I still think Bennett's got the potential to, I will say, a 20-goal scorer. Over an 82-game schedule, I'll say a 20-goal scorer. He does have a physical presence, and in the playoffs, he's shown he can be useful. Whereas Virtanen, it kind of feels like he's running out of time in Vancouver. I'm just not sure what the end game's going to be. Do they look to trade him? Do they let him go as a free agent? Do they try to get Seattle to take him? Do both of these guys end up in Seattle? End up on a line together? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.